Hi, everyone. So I wanted to talk about a subject that I sometimes bring up and certainly has occupied me for most of my adult life, and that is, what does it mean to go deeper? What is deeper? Where is deeper? I remember when I first met my guru and teacher. That was in 1971 in Amsterdam. And I remember sitting with him. There he was in his white robes, with his beard, looking very, very wise. And I was, at the time, only about 30, 31, I think. And I said to him, I'd gone to a nightclub the night before. And when I had my eyes open and looked out at the world, there was one reality. And when I closed my eyes, there seemed to be another reality, which was the real one. I'm not going to go into what he said at the time, although I do remember it, even though it was quite a long time ago. But nevertheless, it brings up this question of depth. It does seem as if, with my eyes open and looking out on the world, there's the world out there, and it's just there. The objective world is there. It doesn't feel very deep. And then with my eyes closed, there was a sense of depth, and that I could go deeper. So what does it mean to go deeper? And who is the one that's going deeper? And where is depth? And how deep can you go? These are the kinds of questions that always have involved me. Is who am I? Where am I? What am I? And how can I go and discover who I am? It feels like I am inside me, and I can go deeper. That outside doesn't go very deep. I mean, I can have a nice house, a nice car, a nice partner, and all that kind of stuff, and that's out there. But there's also something deep inside me, something that I can examine and somewhere I can go with regard to depth. And when I was on my walk this morning, I was thinking how to talk about depth. And what came up for me was this idea of a forest. So here I am in front of this forest. And I feel quite comfortable being outside the forest, looking at the forest, and feeling that I'm quite safe where I am, and I know where I am, and I know this place, and there's a path I can see that it goes into the forest. And that path is quite comfortable, knowing that there's a path, and that other people have been along the path and even constructed the path. And so I can enter into that forest now. And there's a path. I can follow the path and know that I can get out again. And that's comforting. And I can enter that forest and walk along the forest and recognize that it's taking me deeper. So there's a sense of depth here, that we're going into a forest. It's lots of big trees. There could be some danger there, but I've got a path and I can always run out again without any problem. And slowly, as I go deeper into the forest, there is a shift in my consciousness. There's a sense of the unknown, and maybe a little bit of fear and anxiety starts to come up slowly as I go deeper, because I'm on my own. No one else is there with me. And the path is slowly getting less clearly defined as I go deeper. And the trees seem to enclose the forest and make it much more darker. And so I'm entering into territory now that feels a little bit unfamiliar and a little bit scary. So we can do the same thing with ourselves. We can start to enter into this forest that I am and start to look around. And as I stand in the first entrance of this forest that I am, the first things that I notice, of course, is my thinking mind. And there's thoughts that come up all the time without stopping. Not possible even to stop it. I can control it, and sometimes I get the idea that I'm even in control of my thoughts and I can use thinking in a particular kind of way. But that's almost the first thing that comes to me as I enter my forest, is thinking. And then I recognize also that thinking can stir up emotions. Same as in the forest, as I keep walking, there's all kinds of thoughts that come up and emotions that come up, anxiety, fear, whatever it is. And that's the first part of the forest, first part of myself as I go deeper into myself. So there is a sense of depth now. At the most superficial level is just this physical body, and I see that. And now I'm entering into the deeper spaces. And the first things as I come across is thinking mind and emotions. And they're noisy. It's very difficult because I want to get into something more quieter, and I can't because this noise of the thinking mind and stirring up emotions all the time. I don't always have emotional reactions, but sometimes it's just pure thinking. But thinking is also noisy and can be irritating because it never stops and stirs up all kinds of stuff. So this is the part of the forest that I want to go. I want to go deeper now. How do I get past this? How do I get past my thinking mind and all this emotional stuff that's sitting there in the front and preventing me from going deeper? Because there is a sense of depth that comes up here. And how can I go deeper? Well, that's interesting here because, of course, the whole ancient technique of meditation that people found was one way to go deeper, to get past the thinking mind. The whole point of meditation is to stop paying attention to thought and just let thought go past. And as thought goes past and you're no longer attached to thought, you notice that your emotions also calm down. And now we're going deeper into the forest. Now we're managing to get past the thinking mind. We've calmed the thinking down, emotions calm down, and suddenly we see gaps between the thoughts. And now we go deeper. That's what I mean by going deeper. And what do we find when we go deeper? Well, what happens when we go deeper into the forest? At first, there's a sense of astonishing silence. It feels quiet, and that quietness is even a little bit scary. You know, we've just come outside the forest was very noisy. But now we entered into the forest and the trees are around us, and we've gone past the sense of the outside. Now we're into the depth of the forest and the trees are around us, and suddenly there's a sense of the silence which is a bit scary. And we notice suddenly that in that silence, that it's not actually silent. That the silence is full of the voice of nature, birds and little rustling in the leaves below us, in the forest floor. We can almost no longer see the sky because the trees are covering it. And it's a little bit dark now, but as our eyes accommodate, we begin to see actually things that we couldn't see before. So that's the moment we get past the noise of the thinking mind and all that emotional stuff that is sitting there. Once we get into that, past that thinking and emotional side, once we get past that, we suddenly notice that it becomes quiet. Thoughts are out of the way. The emotional noise is out of the way. And suddenly it becomes quiet. And now we've gone much deeper than we were before into the depth of ourselves, past the noise of the thinking mind, past the noise of the emotions. And then we discover the silence. And so that silence is kind of interesting because as we become used to the silence, at first we maybe run away from the silence back into thought, which is more comfortable. But as we become accustomed to that silence that's there, we begin to notice that actually it's not totally silent. That there is a voice to the silence. And we begin to recognize that voice is talking to us in a kind of way. And one of the things we also recognize is that I'm aware. There's still awareness around. So there's a silence, but I'm aware of the silence. And that's a major, major shift in understanding, because when you ask, well, who is the one that's standing in the silence? All you can say is that there's awareness. I'm aware of the silence. And so there are these two very beautiful aspects of ourself as we've gone deeper, past the thinking mind, past the emotions, finding the gap in between the thoughts into the space of the silence that's sitting there behind it, and recognizing at the same time that you're aware of the silence. You're aware of the fact that thoughts are in the background and emotions have calmed down. So awareness is something absolutely key here, because when you ask in that space that you are at now, who am I? All you can say is that I am this awareness. I'm aware, and there's the silence. And so we've gone right into the deep depth of the forest now. And we come into the recognition that the path is coming to an end. And that now if I want to go any deeper, I have to go on my own. There's no path anymore. I'm going now into this mysterious part of the forest where there's no path. Nobody has been there before. I'm now on my own. And that's the spiritual journey, is the recognition eventually that you're on your own and that you have to go. If you want to go deeper, you're going to have to do this journey on your own. But you do have awareness, and you do have the silence and the inner peace that's sitting over there. And can we go deeper now? Yeah, we can go deeper. And perhaps in my next talk, I will talk about going deeper. Have a good day.